course, the Cameroonian fighting star, Francis Ngannou, talking about the welfare of the UFC fighters, right? He says he had been there and he has actually surpassed that stage. He says he can provide health care for himself, health insurance. And he said, what about those ones coming through the ranks who are still way younger that cannot get to fend for themselves? These are the kind of things he wanted in his new contract, which was not provided. And the UFC had to let go of Francis Ngannou. Now we've got Valentine Bambot from Cameroon. We'll get to talk about the UFC and if there's any update he has to give us. Good to have you with us, Valentine.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thank you very much for joining. And for Francis Ngannou, sad news for the whole of Cameroon, or should he be excited because we hear that he just might be heading into a more lucrative deal?
I think it's good and bad news. I was opportune to meet Ngannou when he came down here to Cameroon, precisely the southwest region, to show his title to the population. It was an interesting moment. The UFC is the biggest championship we have out there as far as mixed martial arts is concerned. Yes, we have others like the One Championship in Asia, even the later that is coming up, but none surpasses the UFC. It is important to note that Francis Ngannou has gone a long way in the UFC, and it's almost impossible now imagining him fighting another championship. But I think it's both good and bad news because as a fan of Francis Ngannou, we are hoping to see where next the challenge will take him. Also very interested to see where he will go next, but still very much sad that he is leaving the UFC.
True. Now, there was a picture that was revealed, him and his family members. One of them actually wore a shirt that had a professional fighters league, and there are rumors that he might be tilting towards that league and he might be making more money from there. But what Francis Ngannou said he wanted was even away from the money. He said he wanted more like a player, a fighter welfare for not just himself, every other fighter coming through the ranks. So do you think there was a bit of major politics played between the UFC not providing for these fighters coming through the ranks?
Yes, that's true. If you go and read the biography of Francis Ngannou, even when you hear him speak, he is very humble, grew up in Batie, a locality here in the country, and he has grown from a young man who had to come from nothing to something. So he understands very much well those beneath him, what they are going through. Yes, he has rules. He has risen in the ranks of the UFC and gone up to the heavyweight and ultimately became a champion, successfully defended his championship more than up to 20 games, 20 matches, 20 fights he's had. 12 of them he has won on knockout. The statistics of Francis Ngannou, the UFC tells you that he is a champion. He was born to be a champion. But it's not just about that. It's about, like he said, the welfare of the other players. At some point, we got rumors that he did not want to take a pay and wanted rather to fight players or fighters, I mean to say, that were not up to his standards. I was one of those who brushed that aside because Francis Ngannou is the predator. He is not afraid of any fighter going into the cage, going to the octagon. So I made it clear to friends and other journalists that there's something deeper. So when I saw the video, he kept coming out to make mention of what exactly happened, then everyone could get a clear picture. And I think the problem here is the president of the UFC. He has been such a controversial figure, Dana White, not just with Francis Ngannou, but also with other fighters in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Most recently, we can remember the case of Tito Ortiz, where they even had a physical confrontation. He's had physical confrontation with other fighters in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So this particular figure, I think, is the controversy, and he's a controversial figure. And I think that's why most fighters are leaving the UFC to be later to one championship and to the others.
True. Now, we also hear that a petition might be signed against the UFC, and they just might be getting into a mega million lawsuit. But let's not get into that one now. Let's talk about the possibility of seeing Francis Ngannou fight one of the most dreaded boxers, talking about Tyson Fury. Do you see that happening anytime soon?
Yes, I see that happening. I even think it is possible for Francis Ngannou to make a return to the Ultimate Fighting Championship because it will not be the first time we saw someone leaving the UFC and coming back. That fight is going to have so much pay-per-view, and that's exactly what the stakeholders in mixed martial arts are looking for. The fights that will bring the most pay-per-view. If you're a fighter and you cannot bring in a pay-per-view, then you cannot stay. That's what most of the fighters in the UFC are faced. For those who want the big fights, but they cannot get the pay-per-view. But Francis Ngannou has proven time and again that he is one of those big fighters in the UFC. So wherever he goes and whichever fight is next for Francis Ngannou, he will be able to deliver.
All right, we look forward to what's next for Francis Ngannou, the Cameroonian fighter who has just been let go of his UFC contract and also his heavyweight title. Thank you very much, Valentine Bambot, for joining us this morning.
And thank you so very much for having me.